Hello everyone, welcome back. So till now we have covered the ODBC connectivity, use of pass-through function, and procedure in ESQL. Now let's start with the subflow in ESQL. After that we going to cover the library in ESQL. When talking about the subflow, a subflow is used to provide a common sequence of action to be used by several message flow applications or integration services. So if you need a common sequence of work that need to be used by the many message flow or application or integration services, then you can use the subflow. Subflow basically reduce our effort and make the code readable and make the flow more looking good and systematic. So when talking about the subflow, suppose you have a particular one task require 5 node. Okay, so if you include that particular 5 node in the message flow, it will make the main flow more complex. So what we can do, we can create a subflow and reuse them at many message flow. Okay, so let's directly go to the toolkit and understand it. Okay, to create a subflow, just click on file, new, and go to the subflow. Here if you see, it is asking you to select a container, because we can create a subflow either inside a application or inside a integration project or inside a library. So there are 3 container we can choose to create a subflow, and we can use the subflow later. So here currently there is no application, there is no integration project, and there is no library project, so it is not coming anything. So you can create from scratch also by clicking on new. If you click on new, you have a option of, you can see it is asking to choose which container to create. So it is asking to, you want to create a subflow, correct? Okay, so where you want to create, you want to create under application, you want to create under library, we want to create under integration project. Okay, so that's the one big question, where you want to create the subflow. So in this lecture I will be showing you each one of them. So how can we create a subflow under a application and use them in the message flow? How can we create a subflow under the integration project and use them in the message flow? How can we create a subflow in library and use them? So these all 3 I am going to cover each one of them. So for now you have to remember that we can create a subflow under a application or a library or a integration project. Let's first start with the application. Later I will be explaining you the integration project, and after that I will be explaining you the library. When talking about the application, so just click on OK and just click on give the application name. Suppose I want to give application name as a suppose, let me give it like that, or let me like that, suppose subflow app in ESQL. I'm just giving any name, random name, so you can give any name, there is no problem. I'm just giving so that I can remember this flow related to subflow. Okay, So I have given here the application name as a Subflow app in ESQL. You can see now in place of container we have an option coming as a Subflow in Subflow app in ESQL. Now container place is filled. Now further we have to give the Subflow name. Subflow name you can give anything, like suppose I want to perform some DB operation. Suppose I want to insert suppose I have just given a random name that insert orders and Subflow. If you want to use a schema, you can give here the schema name, or otherwise you can use the default broker schema. Let's skip the default broker schema and click on finish. Now you can see here a Subflow has been created. Under that a file created called insert order Subflow dot Subflow. Okay, just 1 minute. So you can see under application we have a Subflow at insert order Subflow dot Subflow, and you can see the file extension for the Subflow is dot Subflow, and in Subflow we have the one input node and the one output node. If you go to the template also, you can see there is a option called Subflow, and under Subflow if you see there is a input and output. So if you want to use more input terminal in Subflow, then you can drag and drop, and similarly if you want to use more output terminal, you can drag and drop. Okay, so there is another option we have also. So you can drag and drop the node from the template and you can reuse them. There is one important point you need to remember. It is mandatory that while creating the Subflow, you have to use at least one input or one output terminal. Okay, node. Okay, so there it is mandatory to have at least one input or one output node in the Subflow to qualify the criteria of Subflow. Suppose if you are creating a Subflow without the input node or without the output node, it will give a error. Let me show you. Suppose let me delete this terminals, and instead of that let me use the let me first show you one thing. Let me first use the input and output, and let me use the compute from here. Let me first show you that if I will use the Subflow, it will there will be no error. Then I will be later showing. Okay, so let me remove the by default code, and let me. Okay, so now if I will save this, you can see there is no error. Okay, so all error gone. Now let me do one thing. Let me delete the input terminal and let me delete the output, and instead of that let me use the MQ input and MQ output. Okay, and let's see what is happening. Sorry, let me select the MQ output, and let me select some random queue. For now you can see it is not giving the error, but when you will use this into the main flow, it will be error. You can see what error is giving. You can see it is saying that insert order subflow does not contain an input or output node. Okay, so as this is the subflow, and to qualify the criteria of subflow, it is mandatory that at least we need one input or one output. But here we are not using any input or output terminal, so it is not qualifying the criteria of subflow. At that season, you can see here it is giving the error that in insert order subflow dot subflow, and this is the subflow name, does not contain an input or output node. So in that season it is giving the error. Suppose let me delete this one and let me use input terminal instead of that, and let me connect this. Now if you will see, this error will be gone. Now you can see the error has gone. Okay, so that's the thing you need to remember. If you are using the subflow, it is mandatory that you use at least one input or one output terminal in the subflow. You can see here I have used one input and one MQ output. So that's qualify the criteria, at least we need one input or one output. So this is the subflow is created perfectly and there is no error. Okay, so that's the one point you need to remember. Okay, now let's come to the situation what I want to what I said use it. Okay, let me first delete this one and let me use the MQ output because I need the MQ output. Okay, okay, let's consider a situation. I want to create a message flow where I want to perform insert and select operation. Okay, by using the subflow. So how can we design a subflow? Okay, suppose this subflow I have created here is used to insert into the table, insert into the this table, this order table. So if I want to insert this order detail, you know already that this operation I have already performed previously. So if I want to insert this value into this database, we can perform some insert operation by using the ESQL, and that basically going to help us to that is going to help us to inserting the data into database. Okay, so suppose I want to create a subflow that is basically going to help us to insert the data into database. Okay, so let me create this flow to inserting into database. So I can use the compute node or I can use the database node. That is also fine because we can use the database node for inserting, because we don't want to send something in the output. So let me use the database node. Okay, and let me select this one and let me connect this one to output. But although output is not required, later I will delete it, but let me connect for now. Okay, let me give here as a data source name as a s node ds. Okay, and let me write here the ESQL code for inserting into database. I have already written here previously, so let me copy this thing. So it is done. So what I did, I just written as a for order f as a reference variable, as instead of input root I am using the root because it is the database node. So database node does not know the input root output root because there is no compute mode present here. So it to fetch the data from the input terminal, we need to use the root.xml instead of input root.xml. So you know this thing very well. And after that I am using the insert operation to insert this value into this database. Okay, So I just created a subflow that is helping us to insert the data into database. Okay, let me create a subflow, another subflow that will going to help us to fetch the value from database. Suppose I want to fetch the information from this database also, so how can we do that? Okay, so for that let me just create another subflow. To create a subflow, just you can right click on application and just go here and click on subflow. So again it will ask you to select that container where you want to. Suppose I have only one container, I can do other. If you want to create a new, you can select a new. Okay, but I want to create under this container, so I will select this container and let me do here. I just select from order table. Okay, flow. Just I given a name, and you can see the file extension for this also is a dot subflow, and we have the input terminal and output terminal. Okay, now let me add a compute node, because here I want to fetch data from database, and also I want to send this to output. So for that I need the output route, and output route we cannot use with the database node. That's the reason I am using the compute node. Let me remove the by default code, and let me add the code to fetch data from database and send to output. Okay, so for that we have the set command. Okay, so I can write this. I'm just creating in output, I'm creating the XML and SC. I'm creating a field called order detail. I'm creating field called orders, and I'm selecting everything from database and setting under the orders. And as this is a array, so I'm just using the square bracket or list expression to set value under the orders. Okay, now, and we are using database, so just give the data source name as a node ds. Okay, so I just created a two subflow. The use of this subflow is to insert the input message into the order tables, and I created another subflow. The use of that subflow is to select the value from the database. Okay, now let's use this subflow into the main message flow. How can we use this subflow into the main message flow or in message flow? Let's understand the thing. Suppose let me create a message flow. To create a message flow, right click on application and click on new and message flow. Just give the message flow name as db operation. Anything you can write, or order table. Just writing any name. Okay, just click on finish, and if you see here, the file extension for the message flow is dot message flow, while the file extension for the subflow is dot subflow. Okay, so I created two subflow. One subflow is for inserting the data, this data order data into the order table. I created a second subflow. The task for the second subflow is to fetch data from the this table and send to output, and I want to use these two into this message flow. To use this into this message flow, let's see how can we use it. Okay, I can, let me add a MQ input node and another MQ output node, and let me select one from routing template. Let me select as a flow order. Okay, let me just quickly give you a brief about the use of flow order, although I will give you a detailed explanation on flow order in the upcoming lecture when we are going to learn this routing template. Okay, But let me, as I am using the routing node here, so let me give you a brief. Routing node, if you see, routing node has a one input terminal and three output terminal. One is the failure, after that there is a first and there is a second. So whatever the message we send to MQ input node, it just take the message and send the message into the sequence manner. So first it will send the message to first node, and after that it will send the message to second node. So that's the use of the flow order. Flow order, as the name suggests, the flow order, it just flow the message in a order. It's whatever the message coming to MQ input, it just take the message and send the message into the order. First it send the message to the first terminal, and after that it's again send the message to the second terminal. So that's the reason I have used the flow order. Okay, let me connect this to the input terminal. Further, I want to use the database operation. Okay, suppose I want to perform the insert operation and the select operation. So either I have the one option, I can use the compute node and I can write the code under the compute node, and I can some write some code under the compute node, and I can some perform the uh, what I said it, database operation. That one task I can do. Okay, that is simple. Okay, but what if, how can we use the subflow to perform the same thing? To do that, we can use the subflow as a node. Suppose this is called a node, right? This is also called a node. This is also called a node. So in similar manner, we can use the subflow in the main message flow. So that's the reason subflow is called as a user defined node. User defined node in the user defined node, because we can write any type of code. We can write any type of situation. You can write any type of code in the subflow. This is, although this is a very small example, but we can write any type of code in this subflow, and it will work as a it will work as a node, and we can directly use this as into the main message flow. Suppose I want to perform the insert operation, so I can select this insert operation, insert, and I can put here. Okay, and if I want to perform the select operation, I can select this one here, and I can drag and drop here. Okay, so you can see how basically I'm simply dragging this and dropping into the main message flow. Okay, this is how basically subflow works. To use the subflow into the message flow, just you have to drag and drop the subflow into the main message flow, and you can see it is similar looking like that. It is similarly looking like that the node. You can see this is also looking like node, this is node, and you can see this is also looking like a node, this is also looking like a node. And you can see similar to this node, it has also a input terminal and it has also a output terminal. And similarly you can see here it has also input terminal and it has also output terminal. Okay, you can see how basically it is looking good. Okay, now let's understand more detail about the subflow. So now my motive is to use these two subflow into main message flow. And to use these two subflow, it is very easy. I can drag this and drop here, and I can use them. And you can see here also one input and one output terminal, and same here also one input and one output terminal. And what I can do, I can use this, just drag, I can connect here the terminal. Similarly I can connect here the terminal. Okay, that's simple. Okay, so whatever the message will come here, I will route to first message, I will route to for the insertion, and after that second message I will route for the selecting from the table. Okay, the first I will perform the insert operation, and after the inserting into the table, I will fetch the information from the table and send to the output. I will send to this output. Okay, now there will be one question came to your mind: what is mean by this input and output, and how basically we are using this input and output node? Okay, in this message flow. So let's understand this thing. if you see here, there is one input and there is one output, right? There is one input and there is one output. And you can see this second is pointing to input and this output is pointing to in. What you understand from this? This input is helping to take main message flow message into the subflow. With the help of this input is nothing, this input is this one. Whatever the message coming from this main message flow, this flow order, okay, this is going to subflow with the help of this input. Similarly, whatever the message coming out from this after the transformation happen or whatever the logic happen in compute node, what are the message coming out from this subflow, and with the help of this output node it is going out and it is flowing through the MQ output terminal. You can see here it is also pointed, this second node is pointing to this input. You can see this second node is pointing to input, and you can see, and this output is pointing to in. There here is it is in, and you can see here it is the output. Okay, so this output is pointing to in, and this you can see here it is the second is pointing to input. Okay, so if high level you can understand like that. So this input node is used to take the message from message flow to the subflow for the further transformation and applying the logic. And after doing the code logic, when the message need to send to the from the subflow to the main message flow, then we can use the output terminal to send the message back to the main message flow. Okay, so here what I am doing here I am just taking the message from the input. With the help of input, I am just taking message from the flow order, and I am doing the I am select with the help of compute node. I am performing the select operation to selecting from database, and later I am using the output terminal to send the message to the output queue, MQ output queue. Okay, similarly if you see here also what I am doing here, I am just using input terminal to take the message from this first terminal. You can see first is, if you just highlight this one, first is pointing to input. So you can see here the input term, with the help of input we are just taking the message from the first node of flow order, first terminal of flow order, and just using the database operation. But here if you remember, in database operation what I am doing here, in database node we are just inserting into table. Okay, we are just doing the insert operation and nothing we are sending to output. Okay, so we don't need to perform the we don't want to send anything in output, so we don't need the output, because if you don't want to return anything message back to the main flow, so there is no need to use the output. So we can delete this. So once you delete this, you can see this terminal will gone. Okay, so let me delete it. Okay, so if I will delete this, you can see, and if I will save this message flow, you can see in the main message flow now it is, there is no output terminal is coming. Okay, so it has the only input terminal. So we are just getting the message, from the flow order through the input terminal, and we are performing the database operation, and that's all, and we are not sending anything to output. Okay, further if you want to do some instead of mentioning here the MQ output, if you want to do like that, suppose instead of applying here the MQ output, I don't want to use the MQ output into the main message flow, so I can do here, I can just delete the MQ output terminal. Okay, and I can directly use the MQ output here also. So instead of using the MQ output to the main message flow, I can use into the subflow and use the same thing. Okay, so you can see I just selected like that, and if you go to the main message flow, let me delete this thing. Now you can see it is working same like that. Okay, so now what I did in the insert operation, I use the input terminal, database, there is no output required, so I just remove the output thing. Similarly, in the select operation, what I have one option that I in main message flow, I use the MQ output to send the message to MQ output. Or what I can do with the help of input in the subflow, I am just taking message from the flow order. I am doing some I am just selecting the value from the table. Okay, and further I am with in the MQ output, I am using the MQ output to send the message to the output in the subflow itself. So here you can see also there is no terminal in output is showing, because output terminal is already connected in the subflow. Okay, so in this way also we can use the subflow. Okay, so this is how the subflow works, that my motive was to show you. Okay, so let me again quickly brief what actually I was doing. I created a main message flow. Main message flow, I am using the MQ input terminal to take the message from the input. Further, with the help of flow order, I am just sending the message into the order. So if with the help of my first node, I will first terminal, it will message first go here. I have created a subflow. Subflow has the input terminal and the database node. Because I am only performing the insert operation, that's reason I have only used the database node. So with the help of input, I will be just with the help of input terminal, I will be just taking this input message from the flow order to this subflow, and I will be performing database operation. Further, I don't want to send the message to anything into output, so I just remove the output terminal. So you can see here there is no output terminal in the showing also into the user defined node. Similarly, for this, when the message will when this all operation will be done in subflow, it will return back to the second terminal, and from the second terminal it will go here. And if you see this flow has the input terminal also. This, with the help of this input terminal, I will take a message from through the second terminal. With the help from the second, whatever the message coming from the second terminal, I will take this message to the subflow. Further, I will select with the help of compute node, I will be just using to select the select the data from the table. After selecting the database from node, I need to send this to output. Either I can use the MQ output into the main message flow, and we have the alternate option, we can use the MQ output in the subflow itself, and we don't need to specify the MQ output in the main message flow. So that's reason I have used the MQ output in the subflow itself, and I will be whatever the message come, what will the message will be coming from this flow order, it will go to subflow, and it will select the value from the table, and it will send to this MQ output queue. Okay, so that's how basically subflow works. Okay, now you can see how basically it's looking good. Okay, if you write like that, suppose if instead of that, if you write like here as a database thing, a compute node, it will look some complex. And if you, instead of suppose this one, if you write here as a one compute node and one MQ output, so it will also look complex. This is a very small flow, so it might not look complex, but when in the real world and real situation, it some subflow are very complex thing, and we basically reduce those large diagram or large complex thing into a very small thing. Okay, later I will telling you why basically we are using the subflow in the application. Okay, let me first execute this flow and let me test it. Okay, let me use the queue here as a, what is the queue name, let me use the test12.in. Okay, so let me test12.in as a input queue to take the message, and further I am using here as a output queue also. So let me write here as a test12.out. Before testing the flow, I want to explain you one more thing. Suppose in same application, subflow app in ESQL, I have one more message flow, and that message flow is also used for db operation, db select operation in ESQL. Okay, and I have one more application. Okay, that is one. I have one more message flow just use for db insert. Okay, okay. So I have the 3 message flow and the 2 sub flow. Okay, I have already told you this sub flow. I am using the both insert operation and the select operation from this database, right? Suppose I have 2 more message flow. This message flow is used for the insert operation only, and this message flow is used for the select operation only. Okay, so let me configure this also. Okay, let me use the MQ first node MQ input, and let me use the MQ output, and let me use the compute node also, as this is for select operation, so I need the compute. And let me do here, and let me, okay, so this is connected, but I don't want to use MQ. Okay, just let me use the MQ input only for now, and for here also let me use the MQ input. Now let me just do one thing, let me use the MQ output and the compute. Similarly, let's for this for also, for insert operation also, let me select the MQ input and MQ output. Although output is not required because I don't want to send into anything output, I need database node to insert into database. So let me select the database node, and let me connect this one. Okay, so this is how we can perform the database operation, and this is how we can perform the select operation. So ideally we design the application in this like manner, right? We use the MQ input to take this input message. Further in compute node, I will write this select operation, this select statement to perform the select operation, and in MQ output we will get the information. Similarly, in the insert operation, I will write the MQ input thing, and in database node, I will use the MQ input to take the input message, and I will perform with the help of database node. I will just write this database code to perform the database statement. But this is a very small flow, right? So it is possible to maybe write the this small line of code, but in ideal way it is a very 100 line, 200 line, 500 line code. Okay, so how can we, as you know already, I have created a subflow for the inserting, and I have already created a subflow for selecting the value from the table. So why we are using the again this and this? So that's the not that we can skip the escape. So we can do one thing like that, we can delete this compute node and delete this MQ output nodes. It is not required, right? We want to perform the select operation, right? So we can directly use the select subflow, and we can drag and drop here. That's all, and we can directly combine this. That is done. You can see how basically it is making easy. Okay, suppose here I want to perform the only insert operation. Okay, so I want to, why you are using database node? It is not required, right? So just remove this one. Here is the subflow for inserting. So I will use the insert and just drag and drop, and I will connect this thing. Okay, so see how it is easy. Okay, so in this way we can make our effort easy, and we can make our thing easy. Okay, so you can see what I am doing here. I have just created 2 subflow. One subflow is for inserting into database, other subflow is for selecting from the database. And here we have the many message flow. and I am using the same subflow to many message flow. You can see here I just this I have the three message flow. So this message flow I am using insert subflow and select subflow. This message flow, although it is only require the select operation, so I am using the select subflow. This message flow only require the insert, so I am using the insert subflow. Okay. Okay, so you can see how it is easy. Okay, so here you can see there is one line written here. So you define a subflow to provide a common sequence of action, right? Common sequence of action here is selecting from database and the inserting of database. Because there is one task that is selecting from database and there is one task that is inserting database. So this is one common sequence of tasks, this is another common sequence of tasks. So this is one common sequence of tasks, this is another sequence of tasks. Okay, and it is written like that to be used by the several message flow. You can see I am using this same thing into the many message flow. I am using here also, I am using here also, I am using here also. So we can create a soft flow at once and we can use at many message flow. Okay, so that's the benefit of using the. Okay, and you can see it is application, it is you can include the subflow in your message flow in same way as you include the built-in node or user defined node. You can see I am using this subflow like that, what, like node. You can see I am using this subflow as a node. Similarly, you can see I am using this subflow as a node. I am using these two subflow as also as a node. Okay, so that a region sometime it is called as user defined node because it is a node that we have defined. Okay, this is a node where it is actually a subflow where we have written some code and I am using this as a node. So that's the reason it is called the user defined node. So it is a node that I have defined what I have to perform and I am using this as a node. That's the reason it is called a user defined node. Okay, so that's the line, it is clear to you, right? We define a subflow to provide a common sequence of actions. Common sequence of action, I'm just giving two example, that inserting is a one common sequence and the selecting from table is another common sequence of tasks. Okay, to be used by several message flow. You can see I have used it in the several message flow, same subflow here also, same subflow here also, same subflow here also. Okay, so we can use the subflow at many, we can use the subflow with several message flow. Or okay, you can include the subflow in your message flow in same way as a built-in node and user defined node. That's all I told you. We define a subflow once and use it with the more than one message flow application, integration service and integration project. Same thing you saying, it is saying it is saying that we can define a subflow once. You can see I have defined a subflow at one time, that integration, insert and delete, and I am using with the many message flow. I am using with the many message flow. Okay, so we can define a subflow once and we can use with the more than one message flow. You can see I am using here, we have the three message flow and I am using this with the three message flow. So I am defining the subflow at once and I am using it with the many message flow. Okay, so that second line also clear. Okay, third line is that we can develop the subflow in many way. So you can see there are three way, already told you to create a subflow. Okay, so to create a subflow we have the option that we can either select application as a libraries, or as a container, or library as a container, or the integration project as a container. So that's the three thing it is written here. Either we can create a subflow inside application, or we can create a subflow inside library, or we can create a subflow under the integration project. Okay, so for now we are understanding about the application. Later I will tell you about how can we use with the integration project. So let's first focus on the how can we use the application when we create, how can we use the subflow when we create a application and use with the message flow. So first let's understand the thing. Okay, now let me first configure the message flow properly and let me test the message flow, because I have already explained everything about the message flow. So let me first open the each one of the message flow and configure it. Okay, let me select this queue for this is, let me select test10.in. Okay, test10.in, and let me select the parsing option as a XML NSE, and parsing demand is a complete. Okay, and let me add a breakpoint also. And as I am using the, okay, this is the subflow, so it is not required, I think. Okay, so I don't think it is required. Okay, what is the error giving still? Okay, anyway, that's ignore for now. So this is done. This is also, I think, done. Let me select C whether property is properly configured. Let me select this also as a XML NSC and the parsing option as a on complete. Let me add a breakpoint. Let me add here also as a breakpoint. So this message flow is configured. Let me go to insert message flow. This message flow is also, I think, configured. Complete XML NSC and the basic is the test in routine. Now let me select this message flow. This message flow, let me select the input key as a test11.in, and let me select the parsing message as a in XML NSC, and let me parsing option as a complete, and let me add a breakpoint also here, and let me add a breakpoint also already added. Okay, so it is done. So all three message flow has been configured properly. So now let me go to Subflow and check it. Okay, Subflow, we have used the data source name, that's fine. Let me add a breakpoint here also, and further everything is done. Under the code, let me check. I am using return and insert operation only, so that's fine, and there is no need to write return true. I can write return false also. Okay, so because I don't want to send anything to output. Okay, now let me go to select the input I am using. I am using the output. I am using data source name. Further in the compute node, I am just using the select operation, that's fine, and return true to send message to output. And I am using the MQ output. In MQ output, I am using the Q this. Okay, so now message flow is configured properly. Let me see. Let me add the breakpoint here also. Okay, now it is done. So let's test the flow. So I have created a 3 message flow. This message flow is using the flow order to send a message in flow. The first message will flow here, and it will perform the insert operation with the help of insert subflow. And here we have used input to take the message from input through the from flow order, and it will perform the insert operation, and it will do nothing. Okay, further it will take a second message will come here, and it will perform the select operation, and after performing select operation, it will take an input message from the this input to the subflow, and it will do the select operation. And we have used the MQ output in the subflow itself, so that we can get the output message to the MQ output. Okay, now another we have the another message flow that it is just for the inserting. So I have used the MQ input to take input message, and further I have used the insert operation to insert it to database. Okay, another we have the message flow to select from database. So this I have used the MQ input, and I am using the select select subflow to using the select operation only. Okay, further if you see, I have the two subflow also. I have this subflow to inserting database, and this subflow for selecting from database. Okay, so this is all what we have created. Okay, now let's create the bar file and test it. Okay, so just create the bar file, that bar file. So let like this db operation. Okay, okay, you can give any name and just select the application, build and save, and okay. Now the bar file is created successfully. Let me deploy the bar file. You can see bar file has been deployed successfully. Now let me test the let me test the flow. So first I will be testing this flow. both insert and select operation, and then later I will test other flow. Okay, so let me select the queue first. The queue required is the first is a test 12.in and 12.out. Okay, that is already I have. Let me select the 12.in. 12.in. Okay, let me browse the message. Order. Okay, before that let me launch the debugger because debugger is not launched. And let me hit the flow. I have selected this message. Okay, this is the out one. Let me select the in one. Okay, this is the in one. Let me do one thing. Let me load the name. Let me select this as a in. Okay. Now let me open the file. Order this array. Okay, this is the input message I'm sending. Let me write the flow. Flow executed, it came to here. You can see this flow db operation for order table has been executed. It came here. After, with the help of flow order, I will be first sending the message here and will be performing the insert operation, and after that I will be sending this second message again, message here, and will performing the select operation. Okay, let's move forward. You can see message came here. Okay, now we will perform the insert operation. Okay, we have the, you can see here as a step into, and the option is a step. If you want to see how basically message is following under the what is happening under the insert node into subflow, then if the subflow is used into the main message flow, and if you want to use what is happening inside the subflow, and if you want to go inside the subflow to see what is happening all thing, you can use the step into. You can see I have selected a step into. It come into the insert subflow through the input terminal. You can see from okay, you can see from here it came to this subflow input terminal, and from here it will go inside database node, and it will perform the all db operation. It will insert second order, third order, fourth order. You can see earlier it was 36 row. Now if I will see, you can see, okay, 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 it has inserted but the flow has not completed. That's reason it is showing it's still total row 36. Once the flow will be completed, it will be updated by with 5 more row, and it will become 41. Okay, so it will again came to this second terminal of the flow order, and from here it will go inside the second subflow. In second subflow, you can see we have the input terminal. Through input terminal it will go to the compute node, and from here it will do the select operation, and further with the help of mq output it will send a message to output queue. Okay, so let's go, and if you want to see what is happening inside the select this subflow, you have to click on the step into. If you click on a step over directly, it will complete the flow. Okay, so best to click on the step into. Step into is just, it is just used to step into the subflow. So you can see it came into the select subflow has been executed, and under that you can see it came to input terminal. Further, with the help of compute node, we will do select operation. After that, with the help of return true, I will send a message to the mq output, and you can see currently in mq output queue, if I will browse the mq output queue, you can see currently there is no message, right? Okay, currently there is no message. You can see to that 0. Okay, Once I will execute it, the message will be written to queue. Now the flow has been completed, and you can see one message written to queue, and it is the all order detail that fetched from the table. You can see it consists of 41 record. Okay, now if you again fetch the table, you can see now the total row is 41. It is updated by 5 more record. Okay, so in this way we have seen how can we perform the insert operation, and later we can how can we perform the uh, select operation, okay, with the help of subflow. Okay, so here we have did nothing. See, it is very simple. With the help of mq input, we have taken the input message from the q12.in. With the help of flow order, first I send a message to this queue. We have the subflow insert order in subflow. With the help of input terminal, we have taken a message from main message flow to the subflow. With the help of database node, I did the database operation like that, inserting into table. And after that, we don't want to send anything in output, so I don't use the mq output terminal, and that's all. Okay, further I send another message into the second terminal, and here I am using the input terminal to take this input message to the subflow, and further I am using the compute node to do for fetching the data from database. And with the help of mq output, I can use the mq output to the main message flow, or I can use the mq input output to the subflow itself. I have used the mq output to subflow itself to send the message to output queue, and we can see the same output queue message to here also. So whatever the data currently present of all 41 record, it is showing here in the, okay, you can see here also. If I will show you, if I will copy this information into the notepad for your information, and if I will, just 1 minute, if I will do this thing, control C control F, you can see total 41 match is coming. It means there is total, I'm just counting the this tag. Okay, so total 41 match is coming. It means there is total 41 row has been fetched from this table. Okay, now, so in this way we have seen how basically our subflow works. Okay, now let's try with the other subflows also. Okay, so this is one subflow how works. Now let's suppose I want to perform the insert operation only. Okay, so I can send a message to test10.in, and we can see how basically insert operation is happening. So let me select the queue test10.in, test10.in, and let me select the input message, and let me write the message. You can see the flow has executed, and it came here. And if you want to go inside the subflow, you can just click on a step into it, go inside us. With the help of input node, message came into the subflow. Here we will do the insert operation. You can see the first row inserted, second row inserted, third row inserted, fourth row inserted, fifth row inserted, and after that I will do the return false to do, I don't want to do anything. Okay, and you can see if I will browse the table, you can see now 46 record. Earlier it was 41. Now it is updated with 5 more record, and now it is the 46 record is present in the table. Okay, so in this way we have seen how can we perform the uh, insert operation in the message flow. Okay, so here it is, this message flow is only intended for the insert operation. This message flow was intended for the insert and select operation, and this message flow was intended for only select operation. So let's execute this message flow also. For this I will be sending message to the test11.in. so test11.in, and let me just hit the flow so that it will execute, and it came here. If you want to go inside the subflow, just you have to go click on a step into it, came here. You can see after that, go inside the computer node, just click on a step into source. You can see select operation has been done, return true done. it will came into the MQ output terminal in its subflow itself. Further, if you check the queue that is the MQ output, that is the test12.in. Let me clear the queue. Currently, you can see there is no message. Once I will write them, once I will execute the flow, you can see all, how many record is there? All total 46 record is showing here. Okay, so you can see, you can count here also. If you want to count, you can count, but although it is not required, but if you want to count, you can see total 46 records showing into output queue. Okay, so in this way we have performed the select operation, insert operation, and the select insert both operation with the help of subflow itself. Okay, so this we have, I have told, I have actually explained you, I have tried to explain you in very detailed way. So from this all definition is clear that we can, we define a subflow to provide a common sequence of action. Common sequence of action can be anything. For here the common sequence of action is the insert. One common sequence of action is insert. Another common sequence in is select. It can be update or delete also. And we can use the subflow with the with the several message flow, and we can include the subflow as a user defined node. You can see I am using the subflow as a user defined node. You can see it is using as a node. Okay, and apart from that, we can use the subflow with three way. This is the first way I just learned, that we can create a subflow inside application and use with the main message flow as a user defined node. We can create a subflow as it is a part of dot message flow and reference the subflow in main message flow. While referencing subflow, it is used like a node with the input and output terminal. That is why it is called a user defined node. Okay, that's okay. Okay, now let's understand how can we use the subflow with the integration project. Okay, this is one thing we learned with the, how can we use the subflow in the with the application. Let's create the another subflow. Just let me create the subflow, and this time let me, I don't want to select this any container, I just want to create a new, let's create integration project. So this time you have to give the project name. So let me give the project name as a test project. Okay, and just, I don't want to select anything, just click on finish. Okay, here you have to give the subflow name. So let me give the subflow name as a insert operation. Okay, and subflow, and you can see under the test project a subflow has been created with the name insert operation subflow dots and with the extension dot subflow. Okay, let me just quickly show you how can we use the subflow with the integration project, because you can see I have already told you we can create the subflow in three way by selecting the container as application that we have learned in very detailed way, by selecting the integration project as a container. So this thing now I am learning, I have selected the test project as a integration project, and under that I am creating the subflow. And third, after that I will be showing you how can we use the, when we are selecting as a container as a library. Okay, so let's, I have created a subflow, and this, as this is the insert operation, let me just copy the information from directly from here what I am doing. So this is the one I'm using database and I am using this code. Okay, so let me do thing, let me use a database node, database, and let me and Let me give the data source name as a s node ds, and let me give the ESQL code. Okay, now it is done. So I have created a subflow under the integration project test project. Now let's create a message flow under the test project itself. So let me create a message flow as a db operation. Okay, just click, let me click finish, and I just want to show a small flow. Okay, mq input, and let me use this subflow as a user defined node. Okay, and okay, and let me give the queue name. Let me create a new queue as test 13 I have already used. Let me create a test 14.in, test 14.in. Okay, so let me give the test 14.in and parsing as a XML NAC parsing, and the parsing option as a complete. Okay, so now let's understand what I did. I created a integration project, test project. If you don't know about the integration project, just go to the previous video when I have explained you what is integration project. Under integration project is a container where we can create the independent resource. If you see here when we creating the application, it is a collection of message flow or the subflow, and while creating the bar file we don't have an option to select a particular message flow. This all message flow will be selected because the application is a complete package or complete solution which consists of a particular set of solution and defined in a message flow, while integration project is a container where we can create a resource independently and we can deploy the resource independently. We can create a package as a bar file independently. So if you have created a 10 message flow inside this test project, and if you want to deploy only one message flow, you can deploy it. But here if you created a 5 message flow inside the subflow, and if you want to deploy a particular one message flow, it is not possible. You have to deploy all 5 flow as a package of this application. Okay, that's the difference between the subflow and the integration project. Okay, so subflow is that sorry, application is a complete package that consists of a list of message flow or the subflow or any ESQL file, and it perform a particular task, while the integration project is a container. We can create the resource independently and we can deploy the resource independently, and this is mostly useful when we are useful when we are working with a container, when we are working as a independent integration server. So by seeing the demand of the container thing or the cloud thing, we independent integration server approach has came, and after that the concept of the integration project has came, so that we can create a flow independently under the integration project and we can deploy it. Okay, the same thing I am going to show you here. Okay, you can see currently I have created a message flow with the file extension dot message flow and a subflow with the file extension dot subflow. Subflow is doing nothing. Subflow is a small subflow which is performing the database operation, and although it is not required the output, so just remove the output. Okay, and I have did some coding to return false. Let me give here Okay, so I just did a small coding to insert in database, and this is the simple subflow where I'm taking my input message and I'm doing the database insertion. Okay, and this subflow I have used into the another message flow that I have created under the integration project test project. Okay, so here I have used the input queue as a test 12.in, 14.in, and input parsing as explanatory and the parsing option as a complete. And I have used the subflow, this subflow with the input and the database insertion. So with the help of input, I will be taking the input message from the MQ input and I will be performing database operation. Okay, that's all. So how can we deploy this message flow and the project? Okay, either you can create a package for both and deploy it. Okay, or you can deploy independently. Okay, suppose I want to deploy independently, so how can we deploy it? Okay, let me add the breakpoint here, and let me add the breakpoint here also, so that I can show you. Okay, once let me deploy directly subflow to this server, as we cannot deploy the message flow directly to the integration server. So when we deploy the message flow to integration server, okay, it will it will create a by default application that is set under the server configuration file. Okay, so let me first deploy the subflow. If just right click on the subflow and just click on deploy, select the server, just you can deploy. You can see once I deployed server subflow, you can see there is application created as a server one default application. So under the each server, a default application will be going to create, and under that we can that subflow is going to deploy, because subflow cannot be directly keep under the server. So to perform this operation, it has said like that once you deployed the subflow, a default application is going to create, and under that default application you can deploy the message flow. Let's suppose I want to deploy the message flow itself independently. So you can see, okay, you can see under the same default application message flow has also deployed. You can see under the application, you can see here the db operation message flow has been deployed, and the insert operation subflow has been deployed. So we have the subflow also and we have the message flow also, both has been deployed under the default application. But if you see here one point, I have deployed this independently, so there is no restriction that we have to package both the thing and deploy it. Okay, so that's the very important point you need to remember. Okay, so if we are using the integration project, we can create the resource independently and we can deploy the resource independently. There is no restriction to that. We need to make a both as a complete package and deploy it. Okay, you can see here I have first I deployed the subflow and later I deployed the message flow. And that's the thing actually required when we are working with the under the integration server. Okay, so that's the thing came into picture when we are working into the cloud and as a container. Okay, now we have deployed the test project message flow and subflow under the server. Now we want to perform the testing. So how can we perform the testing? Let's perform the testing. Okay, so currently we have the queue name as a, what is the queue name? Queue name as a test14.in. Let me select the queue name and let me send the message, test14.in. Let me select the message and let me write. Okay, it is giving error. Okay, it is terminated. Okay, you can see, but it is inserted. You can see 5 row inserted. Let me again send you and show you. Just write return to it, and if I will move forward, you can see operation completed. Let me show you. You can see 56 record. So you can see how testing successfully happening. Okay, let me again send a message. Currently you can see there is, currently if you see there is only 56 record. Once I will complete the operation, it will insert 5 more row and it will be a total 61, okay, records. So let me move forward. Okay, now it's completed, and now let me show you. You can see total 61 record. Okay, so in this way we have seen how basically we can perform the operation when we have the, when we create the flow as a under the, when we create a subflow under the and integration project, and when we use the subflow into the main message flow under the integration project. So we have seen the both thing. How can we use the subflow when we are creating a subflow under the application as a container. We have seen how can we use the subflow when we are using, when we are creating the subflow as a integration project as a container. Now let's understand how can we use the subflow when we are creating the library as a container. Okay, so let me quickly create it. Okay, so just click on Subflow, and just you can see currently there is no library. So let's click on new and just click on library. So this we have already learned how can we create a Subflow and use them when we are selecting application as a library. We have also seen how can we create the Subflow and use them when we are selecting integration project as a library. Now it's time to use, see how can we use the Subflow when we are selecting library as a container. Okay, so let's create the library. Currently let me give the library name as a, I want to create a library for error handling. Okay, there are library of two types, shared library and a static library. I will be discussing this later, but for now let me select the shared library and just click on finish and give here as a error in ESQL. Okay, just click on finish. So I just created a library. You can see a library has been created with the name error handling. Under that we have created a subflow called error handling ESQL in subflow. Okay, so how can we use the library? Suppose if you remember, I have created here the three message flow, right? But here there is no failure and cache terminal is connected, so there is no error is handled. Similarly for this message flow there is no error handled. Similarly for this message flow there is no error handled. So if I want to handle the error, what I need to do? I need to use a compute node to write some error handling code, and I need to use the MQ output node to send message to output. Okay, this thing I have already shown you into previous class. How can we handle the error? To handle the error, we have to use the compute node where I can fetch the input exception tree, and use, I need to use the MQ output to send the error detail to output. Okay, but again in every message flow again we need to use the compute node and these all thing. So it will be it will be irritating and it will be a problem, right? But if we create a library, we can reuse them with any number of application, any number of message flow. Okay, so let's me show you how can we use them. Okay, so I have created a library. Under library I have created a subflow, and this is the subflow I have created. And let me do here the error handling. Let me here add, do the compute node, and let me use the select compute, connect this compute node, and let me write some code for error handling. So just remove the by default code and let me remove this also, and let me write here as a set output root dot xml nsc dot error details dot exception equal to input exception list tree into exception list. Okay, now this is simple. What I am doing, what I, when the there will be error happen, when there will be error happen, I will be just a tree called input exception list will be going to create, and whatever the information project under the that tree, I am just sending to output with the help of output root. I'm creating a xml nsc, I'm just creating a tag called error detail. Under that, I'm creating a field tag called exception. Under exception, I'm just whatever the information coming to input exception list, I'm just sending to the under that. Okay, that's a simple thing I'm doing. Okay, and let me use, instead of using the output root, let me use the a output here itself, a output mq output to send the message. Either I have option, I can use it into the main flow, or if there is a common queue for failure, then I can select, I can use into the subflow itself. Suppose there is a common failure queues, then I can use for, let's select here, let here you can see there is a failure queue. Suppose I want to use the, I want to create a failure queue common for the all the applications. Okay, so I can write like that. Suppose let me create a queue error queue. So just I created a queue error dot queue. Okay, and I want to use that queue for all type of error for all applications. Okay, so I can use this queue name here. Okay, so my flow has been completed. Let me add a breakpoint, although it is breakpoint is not required, but let me add to show you. Now it is done. So I have created a library named error handling. Under that, I have created a subflow. Under library, you can see how you can create a subflow, you can create a message model, you can create a message map, you can create a ESQL file. These all things you can create under the shared library. Okay, now under I have created a subflow, and this subflow can be used with any number of applications. So how can we use the this subflow? So what I did for now, I created a library as a container. I created a subflow with library as a container. And how can we use this subflow with the message flow? Let's understand the thing. Suppose this and this message flow, this subflow is intended for handling the error with the applications. You can see I have written a code to handle the error. If in case of error happen, it will handle the error. Okay, so this subflow has been created as a under a container called library, and now it's time to use this subflow with other message flows. So how can we use this, how can we use this subflow with the other message flow? Suppose I want to use this with the this message flow. How can we use it? For to use this with the other message flow, you have to reference this library with the message flow. That is very important to reference the library with the applications. If you reference the this library with this application, then you can use this subflow with the all these message flows. So how can we reference this library? To reference this library, right click on the application, go to properties, go to the project reference. Under that, you can see there are many things is present. You can see there is also a library showing with the error handling. It is the same name that we have selected here. So you have to just click on here and just click on apply close. If you click on apply and close this, you can see this library, this error handling library, you can see is reference under this application. Now it is, you can see this library is showing under this application. If you want to further not reference this library, you can just click on properties and you can just untick it and just click on apply coach. You can see now library is not reference. You can see from here option has been removed. So if you want to use the Subflow that is created under a library, then you have to reference the library to the application. And to reference the library, you have to right click on the application or go to project reference, select the tick, or you can apply and close. There is one option. You can see here it is referenced. There is another way to reference it. How can we reference it? Just close this one. You can see now it is not reference. You can just drag and drop it. It will also reference it. So if I will drag this Subflow, where is the Subflow? If we will drag this Subflow to this message flow, you can see it will ask you to reference it. If you click on yes, it will reference it. You can see it is reference it. So there is another way. You can drag and drop. It will give you a pop-up to reference it. If you click on yes, it will reference it. Now you can see under the application, it is referencing the library that we have created, and under that we have the Subflow. Now simply you have what you have to do. It is now like a user defined node. Just click on, just connect the thing, it will work. Okay, similarly if I want to reference, now it is done. Error has, now for this flow error has handled. Now for further, if you want to do handling for this also, you can do same thing. You just drag and drop it and just click on the connect. Now error is handled for this also, you can see. And if you want to handle the error for this also, you can just drag and drop the flow and do the handling in similar way. Okay, so see how basically it is easy to handle the error with the help of library. Okay, so it become very easy when we have created a Subflow under the library. Correct? Okay. Okay, breakpoint has been, I think, already added. Okay, so I have added a breakpoint also. Okay, so in this way we have, just 1 minute, what is coming here? Let me save this also. Now let me close this. So we have created a library. Under library we have created a Subflow. For this Subflow, library is a container. Now to use this Subflow with the application, we need to reference this library with the Subflow. To reference this library, either you can drag and drop to the message flow, or you can go to properties and in project reference you can reference the library to the application. After referencing, you have to just drag and drop as a user defined node, and you can connect the terminal and it will use like that. Okay, now error is handled for this all. Now let's test the flow, how basically whether the error handling is working or not. Okay, so I want to test the flow. Suppose I want to perform testing. Okay, so whether error is handling working or not. So let me show you. Okay, let me build and save the bar file. I will not show for the each flow, but I will be showing you to one flow. Okay, so let me deploy the flow. Okay, it is giving the error. What error is giving? Application Subflow. Okay, as this is the shared library, so it is first you need to deploy the library. Okay, so that will telling you how basically it will work. When I will learn the, now it is deployed. Now let me deploy the application. So when we are using the shared library, we need to first deploy the library. You can see library has also deployed, and then we need to deploy the application. Now let me test the flow. So let's suppose I want to perform a select operation. Let me select the key. What is the queue name? Suppose test10.in. Suppose I want to not select operation. Let me suppose I want to insert operation. Okay, insert operation was there. Okay. So for that queue name is test10.in. So let me select the test10.in. 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 But in somehow the data what I am sending is not in proper XML format, and there is a problem here. Okay. So it will throw an error, and let me show you how basically it will handle the error. So let me send the message and let me write the message to queue. You can see it came here, and you can see now it is going to failure queue because error is handled. Okay, you can see it is going to failure queue, and here exception list has been generated. You can see, and in exception list you can see the same thing. If I will show you what is coming under the exception, you can see it is saying that, and this something this has been used, orders must followed by either the attribute. You can see it is saying that order must be followed by this, and here you can see under the order, under order, where is the under order, this is missing, right? This is missing. So that reason it is giving the error, and same error is showing. And if you go under the, if you go under the for the subflow, you can see it is coming like that, and somehow it is, let me do one thing. Now if you just go to the error queue, let me just browse the queue to see what either error is following to the queue or not. So let me just, where is the queue, error.queue, and just if you browse the queue, you can see the same error message is showing to this, following to this element order must followed by the attribute. Okay, so in this way we have seen how the error is handled. Okay, with the help of subflow. Okay, so we have seen all the three things with the subflow. Okay, we have seen how can we use the subflow in the main message flow when we have selected the application as a container. We have seen how can we use the subflow with the main message flow when we have selected the integration project as a container. We have seen also how can we use a subflow with the message flow when we selected the library as a container. Okay, so this all scenario we have seen. Apart from thing, why if I want to say anything, suppose by mistake I have created this as a message flow, but I created this as a message flow, but I need to convert this to subflow. So if you click on convert to subflow, it will convert the message to subflow. Further, if you want to convert a subflow to message flow, just you need to click on convert to message flow. So if you click on right click on subflow and click on convert to message flow, it will convert the subflow to message flow. Similarly, if you right click on this message flow and click on convert to subflow, it will convert the subflow to the message flow. So vice versa can be done. From subflow can be converted to message flow, but message flow can be converted to subflow. But there is a point you need to remember: if you are converting a message flow to subflow, and if you are using it as a subflow, there is mandatory at the flow must require at least one input or one output terminal in the subflow. Okay, so that's the point you need to remember. So this is all about the subflow. So if you seen what we have learned today, so we have learned that we can define a common sequence of tasks. Here common sequence of tasks for us was the select and insert operation. After that we have seen how can we use with the several message flow, and we how can we use it as a user defined node. Further, we have seen we can develop the subflow in many way. We can develop the subflow either we can create inside application, and we can use with the message flow as a user defined node. We have seen also how we can create a subflow inside a library if you want to use the subflow with the multiple application or integration services. In shared library, we can change those subflow and redeploy the shared library without the deploy with application and integration service and reference the shared library. The same thing we have seen how can we use the, how can we have created the shared library, and how we have seen how can we reference the shared library, and we how can we deploy the shared library, and how can we deploy the application and tested it. Okay, further we have seen how we can create the under the integration project, and we can see can be created independently using the integration project. Further we have seen what is the benefit of using the subflow. We have seen The subflow makes the reusability and reduce the development time, because if you see here, in the for error handling, I just created a subflow one time. I am using with the many place. Similarly, for a DB insert operation, I just created a subflow one time and I am using with many subflow. So that's basically making the more reusable and reducing my development time. Subflow, there is one point that mainly asks into the interviews, that's you need to remember. Subflow can be called by the subflow. So if there is one subflow, that can be called by the other subflow. Okay, we have also seen we can deploy the subflow in following ways. We have seen when we are just creating as we have deployed a subflow as a independent resource when it is defined under the integration project. This thing we have seen. Also we have seen deploy a subflow as application, and we have seen also deploy a subflow as a library. Okay, so we have seen the all three way. When it is as an integration project, we have deployed subflow. When it as a application, also we have deployed subflow. When it is as a library, we have deployed subflow. So we have seen every aspect about the subflow. How can we create a subflow in all possible way? How can we deploy the subflow in all possible way? That's all we have seen. Okay, okay, so I hope you have enjoyed the subflow and in detail. Okay, as I have already shown you about one library, so I am thinking to cover the library in together with the subflow. Okay, so let's understand the library also here. Okay, so regarding the subflow, everything is done, nothing left for the regarding the subflow. So now I have to explain you about the library. Okay, let's understand the library. As you know that in a library, if I will talk about the college or a school thing. Okay, so in college we have a library, right? In a school we have a library, and in library mostly we have a books to read it, right? And people use the book when it is required, and right. So what is the purpose of library? Purpose is library that library has a resource, and those people require the library, they will use the library. So library is basically a container. Library is just like a, suppose what I am giving, suppose in a college we have a room, and that room we are calling as a library. In a college we have a room, and we have named that room as a library, and in library we are keeping books and the magazine and the um, some other things. Okay, that is for a study. Okay, and those people who require, those students who require book, they are going to library, they are coming to that room, and they are just using that book. Okay, understand? Similarly, even when I am talking to any development type of thing, suppose in Java application, again we have a library, and under library we have the resource, and someone want to use the library, they will use it, they will refer the library to their application. Similarly, in our case it is similar way. Library is a container where we can create the message flow, where we can create the subflow, and when it is required, when it is required to use by application, application can refer the library and they can use it. So library is a container where we can keep the reusable resource, and application can use it. The same definition it is written here: logical grouping of related reusable resource like message model, subflow, map, that an application uses. So library is a container that contains the reusable resource like subflow, map, message model. When application need that when application need that resource, they reuse that resource. Okay, so I hope you have understood it. Again, library is of two type: static library and shared library. And there is a big difference between the static library and shared library. So if you go to toolkit, and when you just go to file and new, and there is an option called library, you can if you click on that, it will ask you to give the library name. Okay, and here you can see there is a two option, that is the shared library and a static library. So, and same I have written here, the shared library and static library. So when we have to, there is a situation came when we have to create the static library and when we have to create the shared library. That's the big thing when it came. You can see here also a definition came when I'm selecting the shared library. Select the shared library when you require one copy of library to be deployed and refreshed by one of the more application. When shared library updated, change is available immediately to all application or shared library referred it. Okay, so suppose I have created here application. You can, if you remember, and I created library with the shared library, and I referred that shared library to the application. Okay, and what I did, I made a change to library. So when I will made a change to library, the change need to be reflect into the application and also, right? To make a change reflect at the application side, we need to redeploy the library when we are selecting the shared library. But if you are selecting the static library, to make the change in effect, you need to redeploy the application, because application copy a private copy of the shared library. Select library when you require each application to be deployed with its own private copy of the library. For installation, when static library updated, each application that refer it must be repacked with the redeployed. Okay, let me show you. I will be creating the static library, then I will be showing you the, I will be let me first delete this library. I will be creating from beginning and I will be showing you. Suppose let me remove from this here also. I will be showing from beginning, I will be showing you. Okay, so let me remove from here also. Let me just, okay, and I will be showing you difference, because by telling the definitions, if you are a beginner, you will not understand. Okay, so better to have and just explain you by creating the library. I have created here application. Let me create one more application so that it will be helpful for you to understand. Okay, so let me here create a test app. Okay, and let me create a one more message flow as a test MSG flow. And let me use the MQ input and MQ output. And okay, and let me use the compute also. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I have created two application. then subflow, and that's it. Okay, let me create a library. There is a library. Let me first create a less static library, and give give the name as a static. Okay, and under static library, if you see, what are the options we can create? Under static library, we can create the message flow, subflow, message model, message map. These all things we can create. But in the shared library, we cannot create this much of thing. Let me create a shared library also. Shared, so that I can show you difference. Okay, shared library. Next, and finish. So I have created two library. One is the shared library and one is the static library. Okay. Under shared library, if you see, we have the option called we have the option to create a message flow, subflow, message model, message map, and these all things. While if you see under the shared library, we have the very few option, that is subflow, message model, message broker, ESQL thing. So that's the one advantage of using the static library. In a static library, we have a option to create a message flow, while we don't have a option to create a message flow under the shared library. One point you need to remember, this point mainly asks into interview. What's the difference between the shared library and static library? So in shared library, we have a option to create. We don't have a option to create the message flow, and we have a very less option, including the subflow and the message model. While in a static library, we can create a message flow, and we have a very vast option to create the thing. Okay. Now let's create a subflow in the both for the error handling. Okay, suppose I want to use a error handling flow by using the both thing. Okay, so error handling static. Suppose I'm giving the name so that I can remember. Okay, shared, shared. Okay, so I have, under the shared variable, I have created a subflow with the name error handling shared. Under the static library, let's create another flow with name static. Sorry, just 1 minute. Okay, so static. Okay, so I have created another two subflow, one subflow under the shared variable and another subflow under the static variable, and both subflow is used for error handling. Okay, now let me add the compute node, and let me create the flow. Let me add the compute node. Let me connect the input, and similarly for this also, let me create the compute node, and let me connect the flow, and instead of using the output, let me use the MQ output. Let me use the MQ output. and here let me also use the MQ output. And let me here also use the MQ output. I'm just creating the two error handling flow, one for static and one for the shared. Let me use the queue also. So let me create a queue from scratch again. Suppose, so that I can see error, error, static, yes. So for this, I have created a name error handling static. Just click on finish and let me give this queue to the static. Okay, so that's done. Similarly, let me create another queue for shared. Let me copy this. Just click on finish and just click on under the shared. Let me give the queue name, and further let me remove the default code and add the error handling code. Set output root dot xml nsc dot error details dot exception is equal to input exception list. Okay, let me copy the same thing to static also. Okay, now it's done. So let me close this all, and for this also flow, let me complete this flow also. So let me use the queue name as a, for this also let me give as a test. Let me give some queue name. Suppose I want to give the queue name as a test 2 dot in 2 dot out. Let me give, because this queue currently I have not used. So test 2 dot in and MQ connects MQ advanced. Okay, sorry. Okay, I have used the MQ output. Let me delete this thing. Let me use the MQ input. I have used the wrong queue name, wrong terminal, MQ input, and let me connect this thing, and let me use the basic thing here. Okay, sorry, test 2 dot in and the parsing as a XML NSC and parsing option as a complete, and the queue name for here as a test 2 dot out, and let me add a breakpoint, and let me just remove the by default code, and let me just do the copy paste the input message. Suppose I want to send us whatever the input said, output root dot xml nsc to input root dot xml nsc. Okay, done. Now let me summarize what we did. I have created two applications. First application is Subflow app in ESQL, and this application has 3 message flow and 2 subflow. I have created another application with the test app, and this application has also the test message flow, and it is using MQ input and MQ output and compute node for basic transformation. Whatever the coming to input, it is sending to output. Okay. Now further I have created a two library. I have created a shared library and a static library. We have seen a difference when creating the shared library. We have a more option in while creating the static library. We have a more option in static library in compared to the shared library. In static library we have an option to create the message flow, these all thing, while in shared library we don't have an option to create a message flow. We can create a sub flow and these all thing. Okay. So in a static library we have created a subflow, and the subflow is used for the handling the error, and we are taking message with the help of input, and in output I am sending a message to a queue name error handling dot static. Okay, and here I am just using the basic code for the error handling. Further, similar type of flow I have designed for the shared variable also. I created a under the shared variable under the shared library I created a flow called error handling shared, and I use the input. I'm using the input to take a input message, and I'm using the compute node for the basic error handling, and I'm using the MQ output to send the mass error handling error detail to the output. The queue name as the error handling shared. Okay. Now I will be showing you what is happening when we are using, how can we reference the shared library to these two flow, and what is happening when we are sharing when we are referencing this shared library to this, and what is happening when we are referencing this shared library to these two flow. Okay, let me first show you the static library. I want to use this error handling what we created in the static library to this subflow. Okay, so for that, let me first delete all the thing. I don't want to see keep anything, so let me delete the thing. Okay, just let me do one thing. Let me delete the first library. I want to delete everything. Okay, so everything is deleted under the server one. Now currently if you see, this application is not referring any library, you can see. Okay, it is referring library. Let me remove the library, and also you can see this application is also not referring any library, right? Now let's come to the case one. In case one, I want to use a static library subflow to reference this both application. Okay, so for that, what I can do, I can reference this static library to these two application. To reference this static library to this application, what you have to do, just click on application properties and just select the static library, because I want to refer the static library, and just click on apply and close. And you can see under this application we have the library came as a static library. Similarly, if I want to refer the test app also as a static library, so we go to properties, select the library, and just click on apply and close, and you can see here the library has also referred, and you can see under the test app we are seeing the library. So what I did, by right clicking on the applications, go to the project reference and just select the library static library, and we have referenced the library static library to both of the subflow, both of the application, this application and this application. Now how can we use the library with the main message flow? To use the library of the main message flow, just click on the application and drag and drop like a user defined node. So suppose I am just dragging and dropping here and just connect it. Okay, similarly let me can use this with the, let me use this with the, so I have used the, in test app, in this message flow I have used the static library. Okay, similarly let me use in the Subflow application also. In Subflow application, just click on the db insert operation. I don't want to show on all three message flow, but suppose I want to use this with the this, just click on the Subflow under static library and just drag and drop the node. You can see it is done. Okay, it is done. So in this way we have, similarly let me do for the other also. Suppose I want to do a error handling for this also, so you can do like that. It is done. Okay, let me add a breakpoint. Similarly I want to, if I want to do it for this also, you can do again, drag and drop the Subflow and just connect it and just add a breakpoint. So this is done. Now let me deploy the both application and let me show you. So let me, already bar file has been created for this one, so let me just build and save the bar file. So it need to be saved. Let me save it first. Save, and let me close this all. So what I did for now, I created a shared library. I referred a shared library to both application. You can see test app also, Subflow app in ESQL also, and I use this library that we have referenced into the main message flow in both application. Now I am going to test this. To test this, you have to deploy your application. So if I will deploy my application, let me deploy my application. So you can see it is deployed. Let me deploy my another application. So it is deployed again. So if you see both application, if you see under that, you can see if I will under the Subflow in ESQL, you can see this library is showing. Under the test app, you can see library is showing. So here you can, first point you need to remember, each application while using the static library, we do not deploy a static library into the integration server. Point number one. Point number two, each application carry its own copy of shared library. So you can see this application Subflow app in ESQL is also taking this own copy of shared library, and this test app is also carrying this own copy of shared library. So each application carry their own copy of their shared library. Okay, so these 2 points you need to remember that I have also mentioned here. You can see each application that reference the shared library is deployed with its own private copy of library. Same thing you can see, just each application, you can see each application means this application, both application, each application that references shared static library, that is referencing the this static library, is deployed with its own private, it's with its own private copy of library. So it is deployed with, you can see this is deployed with its own private copy, and this is also deployed with its own private copy. So each application deployed with a shared with a static library, so they carry its own private copy of library. Okay, now let me test the flow. So let me hit the flow and to show you. Okay, So for this, let me open the fourth flow. Suppose there is one flow and there is one flow, DB insertion. Okay. So I want to test these two flow. Okay. So let me, okay, test2.in first. Let me send the message. And there is one, what is that test10.in. Okay. So let me edit the message first. So, okay, message is wrong. That's fine. And let me select the message. Okay. Return the message. It came here. You can see error occurred, and because I am sending the not proper XML, and it will go inside the error handling, and it will write the message to the queue. And in which error queue it will write? It will write the message to the static queue. You can see it is writing the message to this static queue, and you can see it is the order must be followed with the attribute this. It is giving the error. So in this way we have seen how the error is how it is happening. Okay. Now similarly, if you want to test this flow also, where the queue name is test2.in. So let me send a message to test2.in also. So let me select the test2.in. Okay, test2.in, and let me open the message. Right, and you can see error occurred, and let me see if error has been, you can see in the same queue it has been written. Okay, so we have seen how basically it works. Okay. So in this way we have seen when I am sending a message to test app, this is also going to message is following to the this queue, that the error handling static, and when I am doing this is also happening following to the error handling static. Somehow a situation came and business told that I want to keep the queue, not this queue name as a failure queue, and I want to keep the failure queue as a app1.error. Suppose. So it means I need to update the library. So for that, what I am doing, I'm just removing this queue name with this. Okay. So it means I have updated the library. So if you are updating the library, so this library is referring to this application also and this application also, right? To make the change in effect, if you are updating a library and if you want to make the change in effect to this also and this also, you need to redeploy your application, because there is no option to deploying the, you can see there is no option to deploying the static library. All right, there is an option but not sure it will be deployed or not. Let me check. Okay, but where it is going, it is still deploying under the application itself. Okay, it is going to each application. Okay, so that's the same thing. We have an option to redeploy the library, but it will deploy to each application itself. Okay, so let me check if it is still working correct or not. Let me send the message, and let me complete the flow, and let me see where the message is coming. Okay, you can see still message is coming to the, there is no message to the app1 error, right? You can see there is no message coming to app1 error. But if you remember, I have updated the library. I have the updated library with the this information, but still it is using the previous information and it is sending message to the queue, previous queue. It is sending message to the older queue, right? So that is not correct, right? That is not correct. Okay. So even if you let me send another message, okay. So let me send this message again one more time. So I've written the message. It came here. It gone here. Let me complete the flow. Flow completed. And if you see the error queue, still you can see one more message came to the error handling static. So if we are redeploying the static library, the change is not making in effect. So how can we make the change in effect? Because in the library we have updated the queue name as a app1.error, and this library is referring to these two application. Okay, but still after deploying the library itself, still the information is not showing to correct information is not updated. That if you are updating your static library and if you want to make the change in effect, then you need to redeploy your application again. So if I will redeploy my application, let me redeploy my application. You can see this is deployed. Let me redeploy it again. If I will redeploy my application will be updated with the correct library. So that's the thing. Let me now hit the flow. Let me clear the first this queue. You can see it is cleared. Let me hit the flow. Flow executed. You can see it came here. And now let me complete the flow. Flow completed. Let me check the error queue. You can see there is no message came here. But if you will see here, if I will refresh the queue, you can see there is one message came to the app1.error, right? And if I will browse that queue, you will see the same error. So now my application is, you can see the same error. So my application is updated with the correct library. So from what we come to conclusion here, let me list all the point. First point, when we are using the static library, we have a option to create the message flow while it is not in shared library. Second point, in a static library, we can refer to the application. Here we have referred this static library to this those two application. Okay, and we can deploy we can deploy application. We don't need to deploy the library. Okay, so we don't need to deploy the library if you are referring your static library to your application. We don't need to deploy we don't need to deploy your library. We can deploy your application, and each application carry its own private copy of when it is deployed. Each application will carry its own private copy of library, static library. You can see this is also carrying, this is also carrying. Point number 2. Point number 3, if you are updating the static library to make the change in effect in your application, you need to redeploy your application. Without redeploying your application, the update, the change you made in your static library will not came into your effect. To make the change in effect, whatever you updated in your static library, you need to redeploy your application. Now let's go to the definitions. So each application that reference the static library is deployed with its own private copy of library that I explained you. You can see each one is carrying its own private copy. Okay. Second point, this means that if a static library is updated, each application that reference the library must be repacked and redeployed. Okay. So same thing I have done. If the static library is updated, for my case, I am updating the queue name. So in that case, whatever the application referring that library, for my case, the Subflow is referring the library, and for test app is referring the library. So this whatever the application referring that library, that application need to redeploy to make the change, to make the whatever the change you made in your library make in effect. Okay, so that's the same thing it is written here. So this means that if a static library is updated, each application that reference the library must be repacked and redeployed. And the last point that you can try with yourself, that is very important. If you want to, if a static library can be referenced with the other static library but cannot be referenced with the shared library, I will if you let me try to show you. Suppose this is the static library, right? This is the static library, and if I will right click here and go to properties, okay, I cannot show you, but let me explain you. Okay, so this point you need to remember: a static library can be referenced with other static library, but not the shared library. Similarly, shared library can be referenced with other shared library, but not with the static library. This is the very important question asked in interview and even in certification question. Okay, so that's the thing you need to remember. So static library can be referenced to other static library, but not with the shared library. And similarly, for the shared library can be referenced with the other shared library, but not the static library. Now, you can see I tried to I tried to reference this shared library with the static library, and it is giving the error. This is the shared library. This is the shared library, and I tried to reference this shared library with this static library, and it is giving the error. Okay, when I will remove this, it will error will be gone. Okay, okay, you can see. Similarly, if I will try to refer the static library with the shared library, you can you can see error is coming. So we can you can see we cannot reference the static library with the shared library and shared library with the static library. Okay, so that's the one point you need to remember. Okay, so let me remove the that I want to show you. Okay, so we cannot reference a shared library with a static library or a static library with shared library, but if there is another static library, then you can refer this static library with another static library, and we can refer this shared library with another shared library. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this is all about the static library we have learned. Now let's try to understand the shared library. Let me remove the reference from the here, and let me reference the shared library. Okay, similarly, let me remove the reference from here, and let me reference the test type as a shared library, and let me edit the flow also. So let me, here is the shared library, so let me use the shared library subflow. So let me just quickly do that. Shared library, and this, sorry, and this. Okay, save it. Similarly, let me remove this thing. Let me delete and save, and let me again drag and drop the shared library. and let me connect it. Now let me again use it for this also. Delete, save, add, drag and drop the shared library, and let me connect it. Let me connect this also. Let me add a breakpoint also. Okay, save it. Let me add here also breakpoint, and let me save it, and let me here also add a breakpoint and save it. So I have referred the shared library to all three message flow. Similarly, let me go for the test app. Under test app, this is the message flow. Let me delete the flow and let me save the flow, and there is a shared library reference here. Let me drag and drop the shared library. Okay, and let me just connect the terminal, and terminal is connected, and let me add a breakpoint. Okay, and let me save it. So what I did, let me close these all. Okay, so now we have learned the static library. Now it's time to learn the shared library. In shared library we have also a message flow, that error handling, that subflow, and if error will happen, it will go to the error handling, that shared. Okay, and if you see here, this application is now carrying the sorry, this application is referring the shared library. You can go to project reference, you can see. Similarly, this application, the test app, is also referring the shared library. Now it is not referring the static library. And similarly, we have used the error handling of the shared library in all the message flow. Okay, now it's time to deploy it. But before deploying it, let me delete the existing application what we have into deployed currently. So let me delete this all, so that I can show you what is happening. Now it is deleted. Now let me deploy it. If I will deploy directly the application, if application is referencing the shared library, and if I will deploy the application, it will give a error. Reason is that first we need to deploy the shared library. So let's see. Okay, you can okay, you can see shared library also deployed. How it is possible? Let me again delete it. What it is saying, let me first deploy the test application. Deploy. It is saying that, do you want to deploy the following reference shared library? If shared library already deployed, then we will replace. Okay, so it is saying that as you are using the shared library, so it is giving you a pop-up that, do you want to deploy the shared library also, or you know. So just if you click on no, you can see it is giving the error, because as this application is using the shared library, it is mandatory to first deploy the shared library, and the shared library is deployable. You can directly just click on, right click on shared library and deploy it. It will deploy the shared library. You can see shared library is deployed here. Okay, and now you can deploy your application. So first you need to deploy the shared library. Now after that you need to deploy your application. Okay, now similarly you can deploy for this also. Okay, so first you need to deploy your shared library, then you can deploy your application. Now if you go under the subflow, you can see there is no, under application is, there is no library showing. Under test app there is no library showing, only the message flow and the SQL file showing. So here one need to remember the point, when you refer the shared variable, to your application, application do not carry the private copy. There is no, you can see for this application there is no private copy. So there is, for this application there is no private copy keeping, application is keeping. Okay, so point number one, when we use the shared variable with application, say shared library with application, first we need to deploy your library. Second, you need to deploy your application, and application do not keep the private copy of your shared library. Third point, the library and the application that referring that library should be deployed into the same integration server. So if I am using this library and this library is referring this to both application, so it is mandatory that the library where it is deployed into integration server, in same integration server this application that referring that library should be deployed. Okay, so that's the one important point to remember. If you deploy your application into different library and different integration server, and your library is in different integration server, so it will not work. So library and the application that using that library should be running under the same integration server. One number two. Okay, now let's test the flow, and after that I will be showing you different thing. Okay, so let me hit the flow. Let me write the message. I just written the message, it came here. Let me complete the flow. Flow completed. Let's see where is the error message coming. So in here it is no. Let me select the queue. You can see currently message error is coming into the same error is coming to the queue, error handled shared, and this is the same queue that we have created under the shared variable. Correct? Okay, now suppose business came and business told that I don't want to use this queue for the error handling, they want to use a different queue for error handling. So in that case we need to update this library. Okay, so to update this library, let me update the library. Let me use this queue as error handling for this shared library. So let me use this queue, error.queue. So let me give here. Okay, so now my library is updated. Okay, here there is one more benefit while using the shared library. To make earlier, if we are updating the static library, we need to redeploy your application. Deploying your static library will not work. But while using the shared library, we don't need to redeploy your application. We can deploy your redeploy the shared library, and it will automatically take the effect into the message flow. So deploying the shared library is enough. We don't need to deploy your application. Okay, so let me hit the flow again and let's see where is the error coming. Let me clear the message from here and let me again hit the flow. Just written the flow, it came here. Now let me complete the flow. Now let's see whether this, okay, you can see there is no message coming to this error handling dot shared queue. Let me see if message coming to error.queue. You can see one message came to error.queue. So we have only redeployed the library, and that is making the effect into the all application that is referring that library. So that's the one benefit, that we don't need to redeploy your application. Only deploying the library will work, and that's basically help us to make the better arrangement of the code. Okay, so this is all about the shared library and static library. Let me go to definitions. Okay, a shared library can be deployed directly to integration server. You can see I have directly deployed the shared library to integration server. You can see here it is deployed right now. application must explicitly reference the shared library. So you can see currently under the application there is no library showing. Under the application there is no library showing, but application is referring the library that is deployed under the integration server. So it is not direct keeping the private copy, it is just referring it. Okay, if the shared library is updated, all the referring application will pick up the change immediately. It should be so you can, it already told it should be in the same EG where the application is. So that's the same thing I told you. So library should be running under the same integration server where application is running. And any change made in library will come in effect once we redeploy your library. That's the same thing I told you. So to make the change in effect with the application that referring the shared library, we need to just redeploy your library. We don't need to redeploy your application. Okay, and no application need to redeploy. Shared library can be referenced with the other shared library, but not the that already told shown you. Okay, so this is all about the static library and the shared library. Okay, so I hope you understand. I will quickly take 2 minutes to summarize the library and the subflow. Okay, so first, subflow. When talking about subflow, it is used for the common sequence of action, and it can be created into three way. Either it can be created under a container of application, or under a container of a library, or as a container as an integration project. Okay, now further we have seen we can deploy your application, and what is the use of what is the benefits of using the subflow. Okay, now later we have seen the use of library. Okay, so when talking about the library, when we need to perform some when we need under library, we can keep some reusable resource that can be used with many applications. And so that's the reason we create library. Further, we have seen the libraries of two type: static and shared library. And when talking about difference between the shared library and static library, let's quickly give you shared library. Under shared library, we cannot create the message flow, while under the static library we can create the message flow. Point number one. Point number two, shared library. If we deploy the static library, it keep a private copy. Application keep a private copy of shared library, while when we deploy the static library, application do not keep the private copy of the shared library. Point number three, uh, if we update the static library, then deploying the static library will not take effect into the application. We need to redeploy your application. There is no need to deploy the static library. Only we need to deploy your application. So deploying the application will make the change in effect whatever we did in the static library. Okay, while in case of shared library, we don't need to, if any change we perform on the shared library, we don't need to redeploy the shared library. The whatever we need to just update the shared library, and we need to deploy the shared library, and immediately it will check immediately after deploying the shared library. Immediately the change will take in effect with the subflow, and there is no need to deploy the applications. Now that's the creates the benefit of the using the shared library, because we don't need to deploy your application. Deploying the shared library will take immediately effect into the application. Okay, that's the third point. Okay, fourth point, what we can say it, fourth point, that the shared library can be referenced with the shared library, and static library can be referenced with the static library, but it cannot be possible that the static library can be shared with shared, and shared cannot be referenced with the static. Okay, that's the fourth point. Fifth point, what I can say, that fifth point can be say that, okay, I think that is enough. Okay, so that's all about the shared library and the static library. I have tried to giving you a basic example. You can try with some complex example, because here I can show you the, I can explain you the concept, and the rest it is up to you to explore the thing and to uh, learn the thing. And if you still, if you are facing some issue, then you can reach out to me. You can contact me. I am okay to help you once I will have some time. Thank you so much. Thank you all.